Hello and welcome everyone to yet another interesting episode of the Polity Primer series. And this episode is going to be very special in nature. In this episode, we are going to discuss a very crucial topic that is relevant today. The title of our today's discussion is Right to Vote or Right to Cast Your Own Vote. In this discussion, we'll firstly study about the meaning of this term voting. Then we are also going to understand a very important concept known as the universal adult suffrage. Then we are also going to analyze the history of voting. We are also going to see the constitutional importance of nota and right to secrecy while voting. Then we are also going to understand right to vote of non-resident Indians and prisoners in India. And lastly, we'll see a practice question for your prelims examination and a practice question for your mains examination. So if I talk about the background of our today's topic, we celebrate National Voters' Day. National Voters' Day every year on 25th January. Let me know in the comment box below that why do we celebrate the National Voters' Day. So let us begin our discussion by discussing the meaning of the term voting and your important constitutional right of casting your own vote. So if I talk about the term meaning of casting your vote or meaning of this procedure known as voting, it means that you have a right to cast your own vote. You have a right to freely express your choices. So, voting is a fundamental civic act that lies at the core of any democratic society. It is a process through which eligible individuals express their preferences, opinion and choices by casting their votes for candidates, political parties or specific issues in elections or referendums. So, basically, democracy is of two types. Direct democracy . For example, Switzerland. So in Switzerland, people vote directly on various issues and those issues are presented before people by a process known as referendums. Okay. And then there is indirect democracy. Indirect democracy. For example, like in India. In India, you vote for a political party, you vote for a particular candidate. However, if you understand the meaning of this term voting, it simply means that you have a right to freely express your preferences, opinion and choices by casting your vote. And the act of voting holds a significant meaning and plays a crucial role in shaping the course of a nation's governance and policies, because you are choosing your government, you are choosing the leaders of the future which will decide the nation's governance and policies, and that is why this right of voting is very important. Moving forward. The right to vote is not just a privilege but a basic human right. It is inherent in every individual and he should be eligible to vote, and after being eligible to vote, he has the right to cast his vote in a free manner. So it is protected by the UDHR or Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, also known as the ICCPR of 1966. And in many countries, the right to vote is also protected by the national constitutions. That means it is a constitutional right that is guaranteed by the constitutions across the globe. Okay. Now let us discuss another important concept for today, and that is known as the concept of universal adult suffrage. So, universal adult suffrage is a fundamental principle of democracy that ensures that all eligible adult citizens, regarding of their caste, regarding of their creed, regarding of their gender, irrespective of their caste, creed, gender, race, etc., are eligible to vote. They cannot be discriminated on the grounds of gender, caste, etc. Okay. And have the right to vote in free and fair elections. So basically it talks about that all individuals have a right to cast their own vote and they will not be discriminated on the basis of caste, creed, gender, etc. This concept represents a cornerstone of democratic governance and is founded on the belief that every individual's voice and choice should be considered equal and valuable in shaping the course of a nature. So basically, it is based on the concept that no voter should be left behind and all individuals have their right to exercise their vote and they will not be discriminated on any of the grounds such as caste, creed, race, sex, etc. Okay, and free and fair elections. Free and fair elections in India is the prerogative of the Election Commission of India under Article 324 of our Indian Constitution. So if we'll talk about this concept of universal adult suffrage and it's mentioned in the Indian Constitution. So basically, Article 326 of the Indian Constitution is a significant provision that deals with the subject of elections to the House of People, also known as the Lok Sabha, and to the legislative assemblies of state. And this Article 326 of our Indian Constitution is based on the fundamental principle of universal adult suffrage. That means if you are eligible in India and you are not barred by any law from voting, then you cannot be discriminated on the basis of your caste, creed, etc. as I have explained. Okay, so Article 326, which talks about casting your vote for the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies, is based on the foundational principle of universal adult suffrage. Article 326 of the Indian Constitution grants the right to vote to every citizen of India who is of 18 years of age or older, unless otherwise disqualified by law. So there are various kinds of disqualification such as insolvency, etc. But if you are eligible, then definitely you have a right to vote under Article 326 of our Indian Constitution if you are of 18 years or older. So now the question is, why did our founding fathers decided that we will follow the concept of universal adult suffrage? Because they were aware of the atrocities in the colonial laws. In the colonial laws or the colonial times, many of the Indians were not allowed to cast their votes. Okay, they were discriminated, and that is why our foundational fathers of our Indian Constitution, okay, said that no, will not discriminate any Indian, and we will give equal right to vote to every Indian. The inclusion of universal adult suffrage in the Indian Constitution was a momentous decision taken by the framers of our Indian Constitution. It signified a break from the colonial era when voting rights were limited and restricted to a small section of the population, and this is what exactly they didn't want. The founding fathers of our Indian Constitution did not want. They want every Indian to have a right to vote irrespective of any kind of discrimination on the basis of caste, creed, etc. So that is why they followed the concept of universal adult suffrage. And if you are 18 years or old and you are not disqualified under any law, so you have a right to vote in India under Article 326 of our Indian Constitution. Now, moving forward, over the years, there have been amendments to Article 326 to lower the voting age from 21 to 18. Basically, universal adult suffrage, which was followed under Article 326 of our Indian Constitution, had the initial voting age of 21 years. But the initial voting age of this 21 years was reduced to the 18 years by 61st Amendment Act of 1988 in recognition of the fact that 18-year-olds were mature and informed enough to participate in the electoral process, and that is why the voting age in India was lowered by the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act of 1988. Moving forward, let us discuss the history of voting procedure, how voting procedure evolved in its present form in various countries. So basically, in ancient Greece, voting privileges were typically restricted to adult male citizens. with women, slaves and non-citizens being excluded from this privilege. So, right to vote was a very privileged right, and it was available in ancient Greece or ancient Athens to only male persons. Women, slaves, etc. were not allowed to have this privilege or were not allowed to enjoy this privilege. Moving forward, the exact method of voting varied by city-state, but in most cases, voting was done through a show of hands or by casting a small stone or disc into a designated container. So, this is the historical background in ancient Athens or ancient Greece about right to vote. Then in Athens, the most famous ancient Greek city, state voting was done by a system called a sortition, where citizens were randomly selected to serve as government officials and to vote on laws. However, the system was only for the wealthy class citizens. That means you can analyze and conclude that yes, right to vote was actually a privilege, and the most of the population of the ancient times did not have this privilege of voting. Moving forward, if you talk about the history of voting in the United States of America, it has seen a gradual expansion of suffrage rights. Initially, only white male property owner could vote in the late 18th century. That means the blacks in America were not allowed to vote. It was only a privilege of the wealthy classes as well as the white population in United States of America. Over time, significant milestones were achieved, such as the 15th Amendment to the US Constitution, granting voting rights to black men, and the 19th Amendment of 1920, granting suffrage rights or universal adult suffrage rights to women. As of now, in America, the black citizens as well as women and the white citizens, all of them can equally cast their own vote. Okay, moving forward. In the United Kingdom, the right to vote has been gradually expanded over time. The Great Reform Act of 1832 extended the right to vote to more men, but it wasn't until 1918 that all men over 21 were granted the right to vote, and hence you can figure out why 21 years was decided for granting right to vote in India also, because we were being ruled by the Britishers, and that is why the voting age was initially 21 years following the British pattern. Okay, women over 30 were granted the right to vote in 1918, and in 1928, the voting age for women was lower to match that of men. So basically, if you see the history of voting, you will find that women were not having this privilege and they gradually attained it over time. So basically, women did not have this privilege of right to vote, and they attained it after a very long struggle, a very long time, because they were not considered as different from their husbands. So they do not have a separate identity for themselves, and voting was indeed a privilege available only to the adult male population or the wealthy classes of citizens, and that is why this concept of universal adult suffrage becomes even more important, because it prohibits any kind of discrimination on any grounds, and every person, if a country has a person or a population, then every person in that population has a unique right to cast their vote if they are not disqualified by law. Moving forward, let us analyze the constitutional importance of nota and the right to secrecy while voting in India. So, the introduction of nota option in Indian elections is a significant constitutional development, and PUCL versus Union of India. PUCL versus Union of India is famously known as the Nota case, and in which the Supreme Court has approved that yes, there is a right of choice to reject the candidates also. And Nota was approved in the PUCL versus Union of India case by Honorable Supreme Court of India, and that is why it is known as the Nota case. The inclusion of nota in elections is in line with the constitutional principles of freedom of speech and expression under Article 19 and right to vote under Article 326 of the Indian Constitution. In this case, the Supreme Court basically said that yes, you have the right to reject the candidates as well, because it will improve accountability and transparency. And transparency. So basically, as per the judgment of the Supreme Court in PUCL versus Union of India, right to vote also includes the right to reject, right not to vote also. Okay. It upholds the fundamental right of citizens to make an informed and voluntary choice. Okay. And if you talk about right to secrecy with respect to voting, yes, it is followed by our India in India, and it is followed by our own Election Commission of India. That means whenever you go to vote, your identity is not disclosed. You vote through an electronic voting machine, and definitely it will not be someone will not be able to come to know that for what political party you have voted. Okay, and your votes are counted in secrecy. Your personal identity is not, disclosed by the Election Commission of India. So right to secrecy is also maintained while conducting elections in India by the Election Commission of India. Moving forward, let us analyze the right of vote to non-resident Indians and the prisoners in India. Let me know in the comment box below, are NRIs eligible to vote in India or not? So, voting rights for NRIs were introduced only in the year 2011 through an amendment to the Representation of the People Act of 1950. Basically, it added Section 20 Clause A in the RPA 1950. An NRI can vote in the constituency in his/her place of residence as mentioned in the passport and it is located. And he/she can only vote in person and will have to produce her passport in original at the polling station to establish their identity. But let me know in the comment box below whether they can cast their vote in India or it is just a provision, it is not followed. Do let me know. So, the Election Commission of India wrote to the Law Ministry that NRI should be allowed to vote following the ETBPS system that is followed by army personnel. Okay, so this is just a proposal, and as of now, this proposal of granting voting rights to NRIs has not been accepted yet by the Law Ministry. But yes, the Election Commission is in favor of granting voting rights to the NRIs. In fact, the Election Commissioner, in fact, a bill was also introduced in the Parliament for doing away or for amending Section 20 Clause A of the RPA and stating that NRIs need not to be physically present in India to cast their vote. They should be allowed to cast their vote despite their physical presence, and they can also appoint their proxy for casting votes. But this bill was also not passed in the Parliament, and as of now it is not clear that whether NRIs can vote or not in the Indian general elections. Kindly let me know the position regarding the same in the comment box below. Moving forward, as for the prisoners in India, they are not entitled to vote in the elections as per the Representation of the People Act 1950, which disqualifies people who are serving a sentence of imprisonment for not less than 2 years as voters. In fact, under trial prisoners are also excluded from participating in elections. So basically, prisoners in India are not eligible to vote. However, those prisoners who are under restrictive prison, okay, restrictive prison as means who are under the eyes of the central government, who are under the house arrest, they are eligible to exercise their vote. Okay, but if you talk about the normal prisoners, no, they are not able to exercise, or they are disqualified from exercising their votes in India. So with this, we come to a conclusion of our today's discussion. We have seen the meaning of voting. We have also understood the history of this procedure. We have also understood what exactly do we mean by universal adult suffrage. We have also seen that NRIs are not able to vote in India, if I know the correct position, but you will have to let me know in the comment box below. And we have also seen that yes, Election Commission is in favor of granting voting rights to the NRIs. And free and fair elections in India is a prerogative of Election Commission of India under Article 324 of our Indian Constitution. So basically the idea or the aim behind celebrating National Voters Day every year on 25th January is that no eligible voter should be left behind, and every eligible voter has a right to cast their opinion, a right to cast their vote in a free and a fair manner. Now let us discuss a practice question for your prelims examination. So the question is, and this is a very favorite question asked in your preliminary examination by the UPSC, that whether right to vote in India is a option A, constitutional right, option B, fundamental right, option C, statutory right, and option D, none of the above. So kindly let me know your answer in the comment box below. Now let us analyze a practice question for your mains examination. So the question is, discuss the significance of right to vote in India. So firstly, you will discuss that right to vote is a fundamental right or a constitutional right. You will write that yes, it is a right that has been given to us by our founding fathers of Indian Constitution. You will mention Article 326. You will write the various aspects such as VVPATs, nota, etc., rights of NRIs, prisoners in India to vote, etc. And then you can conclude very holistically that in any democracy, right to vote is very fundamental in nature. It should be granted to every citizen who are eligible to vote. So you can conclude very holistically. I would also like to take this opportunity to inform you about our 40% discount on live online GS Foundation course. And this discount is valid from 21st to 25th December. That means this is your last day to avail the discount. You can make the payment in easy 4 options. The first and the second EMI consists of rupees 20,000 each, and the third and the fourth EMI consists of rupees 15,000 each. And if you want to know more about this discount, or if you want to avail this discount, kindly click on the link that is given in the description box below. I hope this session was insightful for you. If you have any positive feedback about this session, kindly drop it in the comment box below. If you liked today's discussion and found it to be helpful, kindly like the video and subscribe to our channel for more such updates. And lastly, and most importantly, do cast your votes. And if you have not registered as a voter, you are a first-time voter, kindly register yourself as a voter and make a proper choice. This is my request to all of you, that please do cast your vote. It is a very important right that is given to all of us, and that is why we celebrate the National Voters Day every year. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.